What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we return with Diamond of Tetrarch. It's so great to be able to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you too, man. Thank you.
Yeah, this is our fourth interview. I think you're in second place for the most frequently interviewed artists on this channel now. So,
We got to get to first place, huh?
yep, you're two behind While She Sleeps.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah. But it's so awesome to have you here. So, the new album, Unstable, is coming out this Friday. Congratulations on all the success so far with it and, for everything that's been moving forward. Did you consider this just picking up where you left off after Freak, or did you think that this was, a brand new beginning for Tetrarch?
Definitely picking up where we left off. You know, with Freak, we kind of dabbled into some of this stuff and like kind of tried some new things. And then when we saw that it worked with this album, when we saw that it worked with Freak, excuse me, it gave us confidence going into this album to like go in head first, do everything we wanted to do with no reservations, because we saw like how well it was being received on the last record. So we just kind of had more confidence going into this record, but it's definitely kind of an extension of what we started doing on Freak.
hmm Do you feel that the first three singles that you release, I'm Not Right, Negative Noise, and You Never Listen, is maybe like a good representation of what the entirety of Unstable is going to sound like? Or is that just the tip of the iceberg, as I like to say?
I mean, kind of a little bit of both, like it definitely shows the type of elements we have on the record, whether it's like riffs or just like heavy grooves, big choruses. You kind of get that vibe from those three songs, so you kind of know those are coming. But no two songs are really the same on the record. So like, you definitely haven't heard the record by hearing those three songs, but you kind of have, an idea of like who our band is.
Yeah, it's a good first taste. It's the ultimate pregame.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Was there like a preconceived idea of what you wanted the entirety of Unstable to sound like, or was there still maybe like a lot of trial and error or some experimentation or new territory explored?
We kind of had an idea. Like we knew we wanted it to be an angsty record. We knew we wanted there to not be any limitations on how heavy we could get or how like maybe like experimental we could get. We knew we wanted it to lyrically be super relatable. So we had ideas like that, about the mood of the album. We knew kind of all of that going into it, and the rest of it just kind of builds on itself as the songs come together.
Yeah, and the riffs on here, I mean, excellent work, like on just really hitting hard with that. Like, did maybe wanting to make a record that was relatable and maybe dabbing into that certain subject matter, is that kind of like what inspired the musical aggression that you portrayed on your instrument?
I mean, definitely, we want, like I said, we wanted it to be an angsty record. So we want the riffs to be angsty and kind of dirty. I mean, we tuned to drop A for most of this record. We've usually only stay around like drop C. So like we tuned to drop A for this record. So everything's, or drop A and drop B. So everything's like lower, a little more grungier sounding. So we wanted everything to just sound a little more just like aggravated. So I think that's kind of what we did. And I think it came out well.
Did you have to adjust the gauge on the strings a little bit to get that low tuning in a way? Did you have to up the gauge game a little bit?
I Well, we play Evertune bridges now, so um, that allows me to like still play smaller gauge strings and still tune low, so like and still have that tension and everything. So I still use. I think I might have went up to 11s, but before I was using 10. So like it's not a big difference, but like because of those bridges, I'm able to like still play, relatively smaller strings because I do solos too. So it just makes it easier.
Yeah, moving up to 11, that makes too much sense for this album.
There you go.
Yeah, and of course, being picked up by Napalm Records, congratulations with that. I mean, just like working with them, they've also had to have helped drastically with the influence and with the making of this album as well, right? There was almost kind of like a, an, an extra level of intensity that you could have added with that as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, the album itself was already done when we signed to Napalm. It had been done for like 6 months. But, it's definitely been awesome to have, to partner with their team as far as like the rollout of the album and, just the worldwide connection we have now because of them, like we want to be a really big band. That's our goal. And in order to do that, we want, you have to be a worldly band. And so we're lucky to have them on board. Them being based in Austria, it really helps our reach overseas and in other countries that by ourselves we might not have been able to. So that's like one of the biggest positives of partnering with them.
Yeah, and they're a very like diverse record label too. I've noticed like to have like Ginger, but then also have like a lot of folk metal bands, but then
Yeah.
also at one point having Smashing Pumpkins. I mean, you don't have to be super radio friendly, and you don't have to be super brutal. I mean, they just seem like a very open minded group of people.
Ex- Exactly. Yeah, you look at their roster and there's just all kinds of bands on there, from doom and gloom to, like the happiest of like Viking metal or whatever. Like there's just everything's on there. So that's pretty cool too, to be in like company of just like so many different types of bands and artists.
Yeah, yeah, you can almost make like a festival just out of their roster alone with how diverse it is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and kind of going back to like the sound that you were like in this angsty style. Like you mentioned, you wanted to make an angsty record. Was that kind of like a reflection of maybe emotions that you, Josh and Ryan and Ruben were all kind of like feeling at that particular time? Was there a lot of like maybe a personal experience that was channeled into that made you want to make more of an angsty record?
We just felt like there was like a lack of that. Like when we were coming up, there were a lot of bands that they wrote very angsty and relatable records, like that you like anyone could relate to the music lyrically, at least. Have gone through that at some point in their life. When you listen to the Slipknots and the Corns and all of that, like there was a lot of angst, and people like young kids to adults could like feel that and they could relate. And we wanted just the record, we wanted to bring that back. You don't hear it as much anymore. You don't hear a lot of heavier bands wanting to have that like mass appeal or like be that relatable or whatever. And that's something we've always wanted to make a conscious effort in doing. So like we knew that a lot of the subjects we touched on this record were going to be something that like everybody has experienced to some degree, like some greater than others. So we just wanted to make sure that, and we knew like angsty topics, like whether it's mental health or whether it's relationships or anything like that. Somebody has felt that to some capacity. So we wanted to touch on that.
Exploring those topics, is there almost maybe kind of like maybe for lack of better words, like research involved in that? Like do you maybe like ask fans or even ask your peers about their experiences, or like would you say that it's very strictly based on the personal experiences?
A lot of it, is personal. A lot of it is like watching people that we know and are close to, what certain things they go through, and like channeling that, or just different things like that. And then it's interesting when you get the songs out, how many people come to you and tell you about their experiences that they've had, where the song helped them or where they could relate to the song. And that's always cool to see everybody's perspective. But like when we're writing it, it's definitely like either personal or something we've watched people we care about go through.
Yeah, it would kind of like when I first listened to Tetrarch, because I've been following you since I saw you play at St. Vitus. I want to say in 2017 it was. That was the first time I saw. That's how I first discovered who you were and everything like that.
Yeah.
And hearing those riffs, it had like, this is the best way I could describe it, just for lack of a better analogy, but it had the high school riffs to me. It reminded me of like the anger and that teenage rage that you feel as a kid,
Mhm.
and that ultimately like makes you gravitate towards that aggressive music to begin with.
Yeah.
Like I really see Tetrarch being like the shirt that people wear in front of like their high school lockers.
That's sick. We're totally for that.
Yeah. And being that you had the album like done for a while now, you mentioned you had it done for like 6 months before even signing with Napalm, but like did is what we're hearing on this album how these songs were originally like written and structured, or did these songs maybe change a lot over a span of time?
um, it depends. Like some of them are pretty much like Negative Noise, are pretty much the exact same as they were on the demo. But then there's some like I'm Not Right, or like I don't know. There's a couple others on the record, like Take a Look Inside, that we kind of like labored over and they changed a little bit throughout like the recording process of it, or like we sat to the side, like I'm Not Right. We did the rhythms and everything, and then we put it aside and we were like, that song's nice. We'll revisit it later. And ended up being the last song that we actually finished. We went through a couple choruses, so that one, and then ended up being my favorite. So like, there's definitely some that took a little more time, but others like are probably exactly the same as the demo. Like I think like You Never Listen is another one of those that's relatively like kind of the same as it was.
Yeah. And I'm probably asking this question way too far in advance, being that Unstable isn't even out yet. But do you think that exploring this territory for this album, this opened up a lot more doors for Tetrarch in the future?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything we do is like strategically planned, for the most part, as much as it can be. And like we always say, we want to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest band of modern times in our genre. That's always been our goal since we've been kids, and we're not ashamed of it. So like, we want every record we make, every product we make, every tour we do, we want it to be like a conducive, thing to getting to where we want to go. And so that's how we looked at this album. Like I said, we wanted to be relatable. We wanted metal fans to enjoy it. We wanted fans that aren't metal fans to maybe even enjoy it. And we wanted it to be diverse. So I think that it came out, as good as we could have hoped.
Yeah, you know what I've really liked about this music is because, every time I've seen it either shared on socials or, shared it, with my fellow friends in the scene, like, I love, like, the variety of opinion I get on it because, like, I've heard people compare this music to Pantera. Heard people compare this music to Meshuggah. I've heard people compare it to Slipknot. It almost seems like I can't pigeonhole your band at this point. I think our first interview in NAMM 2018, I might have called it thrashy, which
Yeah.
I have to rescind, and I definitely had to make a retraction in that regard. But I could see thrash fans appreciating it too. So
Yeah, I mean, we started off as like a thrash band in our early days, like super thrashy, like, Kill 'Em All Metallic thrashy, and we like evolved over the years. But that's cool. Like we like that. Like we have people who are like, oh, y'all remind me of Spine Shank. And we're like, we've never even heard. I don't know one Spine Shank song. So
oh,
like,
you're missing out. Underrated. They're
that's
underrated.
I need to check them out because it's just so funny. But then we've had people say like, "You guys remind us of Halloween." We're like, "Halloween!" Like, so we get a lot of like, we definitely get a lot of stuff like that. But I think it's really cool because it just means like, people hear different things. Like no one's just saying like, "Oh, they sound just like this one band." It's like a lot of our influence is coming through. So that's cool.
Yeah. As soon as this interview is done, though, you need to check out Spine Shank. I saw them at my first.
I guess I do.
I saw they're not around anymore. Sadly, I call them like the underrated Roadrunner band when like Roadrunner was huge at that
Yeah.
time. They were kind of like the band that kind of unfortunately was forgotten about underneath the roster of other artists. But like I saw them, they were opening, and then it was Bury Your Dead, Suicide Silence, Chimera, Lacuna Coil, Killswitch Engage, and Disturbed.
Wow, that's loaded.
So it was an insane lineup. Very underrated. So check
That
them
sounds
out.
good.
Yeah, it feels good to mention Spine Shank once. But and I know that you and Josh went to high school together, right? Like you was Ryan in the band too? Were you all like in the same school in Atlanta?
No, so me and Josh met in middle school. We went to the same private school, and then Ryan joined like after we got out of high school and we graduated and everything. So he joined in like 2009, 2010,
Oh wow.
somewhere around there. Um, and he went to another high school like probably like 45 minutes from us or something like that. But we met him on MySpace. So like
Oh,
he
those
just,
days.
yeah, the OG days for sure. So yeah, no, he didn't go to our school, and he's actually from Virginia, so he had just moved to Georgia like a couple of years before that. He hadn't even been in Georgia that long, so
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Were you ever involved in like the Georgia scene? I've talked to a couple of bands from Georgia, and I mean, it's the home of Mastodon and Seven Dust and a lot of great other bands. But obviously, I know that the band relocated to LA to pursue the career. But was there ever a time where you were kind of like involved in like the Atlanta underground in a way or something like that?
I mean, we played most of our shows as a local band and learned how to be a band in Atlanta. Like when we got to LA, we had already gotten past that local band point, and like we never played local shows here. We've never played local show here. But we did all of that in Atlanta for probably 6 years, 7 years, whatever. So, but we were never like part of the scene. Like we played, we had fans, and people that came out to see us, but like as far as like the other bands, they were just really fucking shitty to us half the time. Like we always, and you know, part of it was maybe our fault in the sense that we always had like we just always were a serious band, and we had a goal of wanting to be more than just like a local band. And I think maybe it rubbed like some bands wrong sometimes because they thought like, oh, they think they're better than us, but it was never that. It was just like we always just we would like film every show we played, go home and watch it and see like, okay, what do we do wrong, what do we do right, we want to learn and figure out how to make the show better. Whereas like a lot of the other local bands would be like, oh yeah, we play, let's go get drunk and like tell each other how great we are, and like we just weren't part of that. Like we just really wanted to like continue to grow and like be like, you know, Metallica, like that's always what we wanted. So we didn't make a lot of friends. Like there was a couple bands maybe, but for the most part we were like very much outcasts and did our own thing. um in our band within the scene. So it was like it was a good place for us to grow and learn how to be a band. We played hundreds of shows in Atlanta. Loved the Masquerade, our hometown venue. They treated us so good, but band wise, we were definitely like we marched to the beat of our own drum.
Well, it just seems like, I mean, ambition is always going to intimidate people, and motivation.
Yeah,
I mean, and I could tell it just from the technical elements of your music. I mean, you're all perfectionists, and you like to take your work seriously, and so I've always like, me personally, and I think we can relate to this, is like, you know, look, it is music, it's meant to relieve stress, not cause it. I understand people want to use rock and roll as a method to lay back, but like, nobody moves forward. Even the bands that were drinking and partying it up in the day, they were looking at business. They were looking at, the business aspects of it. They were, looking at what promoters were great and what promoters weren't. And so, like, I think that the fact that you took your band seriously, I think just made people intimidated.
yeah, it did. You know, they definitely like I said, we dealt with like a lot of jealousy from bands and a lot of just, they're just, it just what we weren't treated good by bands there, and for a long time people would be like, the Atlanta local scene must have been great to you. And we'd be like, yeah, it was great. And now we're like, fuck no, it wasn't. They treated us like shit. But like, not the venues, not like our venue guys and everything were amazing to us, gave us whatever shows we wanted. Like, still to this day, like the guy who used to book at the Masquerade, Tim Sweetwood, he's like, he works for Clear Channel now, but he's like one of our good friends. I contribute so much of our success to just his starting with him and him letting us play every show we wanted to play and just being awesome to us and taking care of us. But when it comes to like the local bands, it's just we were on our own.
One good promoter though can really make a difference, and
Yeah,
they've always said that one great teacher makes a difference in somebody's life. Also, one great promoter can really do make change
for
that in
sure.
people's lives as well. Another question I forgot to actually ask about the making of Unstable. This was the first album to have Ruben on drums, right?
No, Frank
Oh,
had Ruben on drums.
oh, he did
Yeah,
as well. Okay,
yeah.
because I
Mhm.
remember. Sorry for the mistake, but like, it's.
No,
I was watching him drum when I saw him play at St. Vitus. I mean, his drumming was just unlike anything I've ever seen.
yeah.
And he definitely, because I know he came into the band last, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like he had to have bring in some new elements as well, as opposed to when the band first started, right?
Oh yeah, and he, like all of us, like me personally, like when I'm asked about like the type of guitar player I want to be, it's like, I've always said I want to be like a guitar player, like, those Zach Wilds and Dimebags, where it's like you don't come to a show just to see like people don't just know the singer. Like there's that strong, awesome guitar player there too that everyone wants to see these guitar players. What's cool about Ruben too is like he's also like one of those drummers, like a Joey Jordison or like a Vinnie Paul, where it's like people are going to know him, because he has such a presence on stage. He's not just a drummer that sits in the back and just like
Yeah.
he really loves and has a passion for drums and loves to put on a show, even though he's sitting in the back. And like, I think that it's awesome to have a band full of guys like that, because it's a really a standout quality, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I could watch a drum playthrough and really enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because I mean, and not to discredit drums by any means, but it's not like melody. There's it's watching
Yeah.
people keep a beat and all that. So some drum playthroughs could sometimes just get a little repetitive. But just watching
Yeah.
him put that energy into it, I'm starting to think that his drum set was a bad person in a previous life and was reincarnated as
He definitely hits hard, so it's possible.
yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is as somebody who has seen you play now live, I think twice or three times, but like I enjoy watching you play live. Like I love listening to the album, but live is where I get the ultimate experience of who your band is and who Tetrarch is all about. For you though, do you maybe put a similar energy into your live presence as you do when you're songwriting, or do you feel that playing live and songwriting are two completely separate arts that you have to like master?
I mean, yeah, kind of, but the hardest thing, and you'll hear bands talk about it all the time, is you always want to try to capture, especially when you're a good live band, like trying to capture that live energy in a jar and put it on the record, that's always a goal with every, and I think with every record we get a little better and better at it. We've had so many people come see us live and, they're like, holy shit, you guys are heavy. Like they're like, we didn't like you listen to your album, you're heavy, but we see you live and you're heavier. And we've always kind of strived to kind of get better at capturing that live element, on with the songs when we're writing them. But there are just some bands, we're one of them where that the live element of our band is just so monstrous, I think at times. Um, but it's a different experience, like you listen to a Metallica record and it's an amazing record and you love it, but you go see Metallica live, especially in their heyday, and it was like, holy shit. Like you just, it's just like a whole nother element. But I kind of think that's cool because you don't get the same experience from each one, even though it's the same song. So, I definitely consider us a live band, but we definitely work to try to capture that, on the records too.
Do you have to almost like practice stage presence or crowd interaction? Like I interviewed one band where they actually do have like pictures of people on the wall or like dolls set up to like practice the interactive element.
We practice everything, and we've always been that way. Josh will talk to the crowd. We used to practice like our head banging. People would be like, "Man, why are y'all so tight?" Well, we practice head banging. Like, and as silly as it sounds, and as like dumb as it sounds, you're like, why do you practice head banging? Like the way you get those tight head bangs with each other is you freaking practice them. Like when you get on stage and you've been doing it for months and months, it looks flawless. It looks like just completely flawless, and it looks like like you don't have to put much energy into it. But it's because we practice those things, and it makes the show so much better. When you do it, like I said, it sounds so cheesy and so lame. Like most bands would be like, "Oh, that's so gay," but like it's not. Like we've always just practiced everything, so
and
we
that
do.
and that's evident in your music and your live shows, and you definitely know what you're getting into when we see you live. Um,
Thank you.
so before we go, I want to thank you for your time again, and looking forward to the next interview, whenever that
I'm
is.
sure there'll be many more,
Yeah.
Alex.
Well, I gotta say it was great because I think this was by far the longest interview because on the other three occasions I always like had something either right after you or right before you. Like at the
Yeah.
when I interviewed you at NAMM in 2020, I had to be on the other side of the convention, like in the complete other convention center, like within like 15 minutes of starting that interview.
Gosh.
So
Yeah. Well, see, this time we're at home, so hopefully you don't have to do that.
yeah. Yeah, but leave it to a pandemic for us to finally have an in-depth interview, right?
Exactly. Better
Yeah.
late than never.
Yeah, of course. Is there just anything else that you would like to promote for the release of Unstable? Obviously, when this virus that shall not be named is gone, we'll be seeing you on the road quite a bit. But like
Yeah.
maybe a live stream performance to hold us over, or anything else you'd like to plug?
Well, like you said, just for everyone to check out the album. It'll be out on Friday, and then we've already started confirming like a lot of shows and tours and stuff. So like today they announced we're playing with actually like it's a interesting lineup, but Chevelle, Seven Dust, Fever 333. We're playing two shows with them at in Chicago in June and also in Wisconsin. So we have two shows coming up there. Then we got some tours that we're confirming this week for the fall. So we're going to be on the road for probably like a solid 2 years once everything just completely opens back up. So we're just banking on that. Once the album's out, won't be too long before we hit the road. So just catch us live.
Those will be some of the most pissed off mosh pits I will ever
It's
see.
gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. But thank you so much, everybody. Tetrarch, be sure to check out Unstable, coming out April 30th via Napalm Records. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.